Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm a Ukrainian Canadian. Today is October 31st, 2023, and let's get to the news happening in Ukraine, shall we? Today is a very important day because there's a huge milestone that was reached by the Ukrainian forces, and that is 300,000 Russian casualties. However, let's remember that there is nothing to really celebrate here because this came at a very big price for the Ukrainian people. And we know that there is no indication that the Russians will stop in the nearby future. And if needed be, Putin will throw another 300,000 men easily. And that is what is very upsetting, is that the Russians are easily convinced by their regime to die. And unfortunately, the Ukrainians, don't have the luxury to do that. The Ukrainians value life. The Ukrainians want to preserve life. But unfortunately, they don't have the choice but to fight these swarms of Russian soldiers attacking them endlessly. And this is why I'm saying that the West needs to adjust its support for Ukraine. Because now we realize that this is the only thing that Russia is counting on, is these endless human waves and these endless attacks. Because for them, human lives are just statistics. It's nothing that they would believe is necessary to preserve. And because the West isn't really providing enough ammunition, providing enough tanks, providing enough guidance for Ukraine in these very difficult times, Ukraine can fall easily if they decide that this is too much for them. And you guys have seen the destruction that the Russians have been doing in Ukraine, and Ukraine gets slapped on the wrist when they want to do something in Russia. And what I'm talking about is destroying their facilities, their military facilities, destroying their capacity to wage war against the Ukrainians. So this is some food for thought, I think, for NATO and Ukrainian allies, that they need to triple their support for the Ukrainians. What Ukraine has received so far, they're tremendously grateful for, right? The IRST systems, the Abrams, the help from Germany, the United Kingdom, obviously the United States, Australia, Baltic countries, Poland. This was absolutely important for Ukraine to be able to hold the line and also start their counteroffensive. But we know that Ukraine needs more, and they know absolutely that Ukraine needs more. And so I think, as I said, this is some food for thought for them, for the NATO allies of Ukraine, to really triple their support in terms of ammunition and other types of things that Ukraine can utilize right now to be able to drive the Russians out of Ukraine as quickly as possible and stop this endless bloodshed for both sides, right? This is not just Ukraine, but also Russians are paying with their lives. Although I have very little sympathy at this point because they know what they're getting into. And so at this point, the only sympathy I can have is for the Ukrainian people that did not ask for this war. They want peace, but they want peace on their own terms because this war was unjustly brought to them by Russia. And speaking of ammunition, so Russia has a military factory that is currently burning in Perm, which is sort of in the middle of Russia. I don't even want to bother looking where it is, but it's very significant because this is a gunpowder plant, meaning that, this will bring supply line issues for Russia. And that can only accelerate the process of Russia's defeat, right? They cannot easily rebuild these factories. Although they have a very big industrial complex, military industrial complex, due to the Soviet legacy that they have inherited. And, without a doubt, Russia can still produce millions of weapons per year, different types of weapons, whether it be drones, ammunition, guns, artillery, repairing their artillery systems. Russia can do that easily. But the less they have of these facilities, the harder it will be to produce more and more of them. And you can bet that Russia right now is working 24/7 by Putin's order, Shoigu's order, to work in these factories and refurbish their T-72s, refurbish their T-80s and T-90s, or build new modern tanks. Russia's become a military economy, and everything that the Russians right now are doing are for their victory against Ukraine. So we cannot allow Russia to be safely doing that from their own territory. And that's why I'm saying that the West needs to give Ukraine an official green light to allow the Ukrainians to be able to attack these facilities, these military infrastructures that Russia is using to wage war, an unjust war against the Ukrainian people, and destroying their cities, destroying their towns, destroying entire schools. And Ukraine can't really reply to that. They can't do anything. And so that I think is extremely unfair, and Ukraine needs to have, the green light to do that instead of constantly hiding, their operations, which is obviously important in certain aspects. I get it. You don't want to make it a known fact that Ukraine is perhaps operating somewhere in Russia with sabotage groups, but also you need to send a message to Russia that you can't just do that safely, right? Just because you have nuclear weapons. So this is positive because, again, this could very well be an Ivan smoking incident, and I can only hope for more of these incidents in the near future. Speaking of which, another smoking incident happened in Donetsk. So let's take a look. So in Donetsk, obviously close to Donetsk is Avdiivka. So far, there haven't been any changes in the front line of Avdiivka. But in Donetsk city proper, fuel tankers that were on the railway line in the south of Donetsk are burning. And so that means that Russia's capacity, most likely that, they were probably utilizing these fuel tankers to refuel their trucks in the Avdiivka direction. There will be a supply line issue here as well. So probably their offensive will stall in the next few days. And we should expect a break because you can bet that they're sending these fuel tankers right around, Avdiivka, and then refueling their own armored vehicles or trucks. So this is positive. There were some confirmed videos from Donetsk in the south today. And another thing is the last update on the map is around Orikhiv, and that is a very good, surprising update, is that in Robotine, the Ukrainians, as you can see, liberated a small little piece of territory north of Robotine. So they captured the village, but on the west side of Robotine, it's still kind of a gray area. You can see that the Russians still control some trenches, and so the Ukrainians were able to capture this area. So I think that perhaps they would try to consolidate the territory west of Robotine, which includes Kopani. You can see that these trenches kind of continue on all the way up to Kopani. So perhaps they will go more laterally instead of driving vertically down south into Zaporizhia. But so far, that's the Ukrainian gains in the last few days in Robotine. So every single meter comes at a very big price for the Ukrainians. You guys know why. This is a very difficult terrain for the Ukrainians, considering the mines, the millions of mines that the Russians most likely threw at this entire southern front line. So the task is monumental, but Ukrainians are getting it done. And although it's slow, it's a pace that works for Ukraine. So we can't complain here. So that's the only two updates I have in terms of the map and the ongoing situation. Now I want to go over my last slides, which will discuss the drones. And so for the lack of human resources that Ukraine has, right? Ukraine has 3.5 times less people compared to Russia. And so Ukraine obviously isn't fighting this orc mentality warfare where they're going to throw waves of people just to achieve a certain goal. The Ukrainians are much smarter than that. The Ukrainians are using drones, and that's how they can calibrate and equalize the playing field with, these meat waves that Russia's throwing at Ukraine. Ukraine counteracts with their drones, and now you can see that there's a lot of companies that are producing these drones, and the estimate now is that Ukraine can produce between 12 to 15,000 FPV drones per month that are transferred to the defense forces. This is a huge number, and this kind of, if I remember correctly, this is pretty much a similar number to the amount that Russia is mobilizing per month in Russia. So the Ukrainians are answering back with drones. And there's a lot of very skilled drone operators in Ukraine. They have mastered drone warfare. And these first-person view drones are operated with, obviously, an operator that can fly them about 2 to 3 kilometers away. And they're very agile, super fast. They can go up to 90 kilometers per hour. And they can get into trenches, into very difficult places where Russians can hide, whether it be in buildings, in trenches, underneath an underpass. So they have been very effective, and especially in Avdiivka. Ukraine has been utilizing these first-person view drones to destroy mobile armored vehicles, whether it be BTRs, BMPs. We've seen a lot of footage from that front line with the Ukrainians flying drones and hitting them directly on tanks and BMPs, and also artillery systems that are in the outskirts of Avdiivka. So the Russians are also having trouble pushing is because they don't have enough artillery. around the area. And with the lack of fuel as well, due to that incident in Donetsk today, I think the Russians will have a lot of trouble for the next few weeks to push, as the Ukrainians are reinforcing their positions and they're utilizing these drones to great effect. And what is great as well is that now in the near future, these companies are planning their next generations of drones, of these FPV drones, which will be able to carry a more powerful warhead and will be able to fly for a much longer distance. Right now, I think the maximum range of these drones is about 2, maybe 3 kilometers max, depending on the quality of this antenna and the waves. But if they can go even higher, with a higher payload and a longer distance, that can only be good news for Ukraine. So hopefully, we're going to see a lot of good strides in technological advancements in drones in the nearby future. And we've already seen that with the sea babies. Ukraine has developed several iterations of the unmanned sea vessels that Ukraine has been utilizing to defeat the Russian Black Sea Fleet and also hit the Kerch Bridge. So Ukraine is really, really developing quickly in terms of the drone warfare, and they have really revolutionized drone warfare as well. Now we've seen Hamas use these drones. Same in Sudan, same in other conflicts in Nagorno-Karabakh between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Drones have really shown us that that's going to be the future of modern warfare. Unfortunately, it's a scary thought, but for Ukraine, this is very positive because the Ukrainians are utilizing them to great effect against the Russian invaders. So this is the video for today, guys. Let me know what you think about the Ukrainian drones. Do you really think that this is going to be beneficial? They kind of equalize the playing field in terms of the amount of Russian soldiers that Russia can mobilize compared to, Ukraine maybe not mobilizing as many men, but at least they can utilize these drones to counterbalance this. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Slava Ukraini!